Hello, I'm Tari. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make a necklace on memory wire. So I've got my materials ready. I have cut out a piece of memory wire that I will be using, and that is how I cut it. I've got some seed beads. I will put materials in the description box. I also have a long needle, some jump rings, and a lobster pin, as well as some pliers. I have two types, round nosed and one that cuts. So to start, I'm just going to make a loop on one end of this memory wire. So I'm just gonna take my pliers. I'm going to leave a bit of space here, just a few millimeters, and then I'm going to bend it in that direction first, not too much, just a little bit like that. I'm going to move my pliers to the center of that space that I left, pinch and twist it in the opposite direction. So you pinch again, hold, and turn it like that. This is what I have. So I'm just gonna finish it off using a different pliers. Give it a gentle pinch, and it looks alright. So we have to make the loop first before we start picking beads, so that those beads don't fall off. So now that I have made my loop here, if I start putting beads, they won't fall off. So I'm just going to take my beads and start picking them like that. You see, I already have some beads there. I let them fall down. I pick more. I let them fall down. I'm going to keep doing this until my wire is filled with beads from this end right up to this point. I will leave just a little bit of memory wire free so I can make another loop like the one I made on this end. I've made quite some progress, and my wire is completely covered with beads. Now I just need to make another hoop on this end, another loop, and I'm just going to do the same thing that I did the first time. Pinch it, then in the opposite direction I bend it. I know I haven't completely mastered doing this, but I'm sure you get the idea. And then just give it a gentle pinch like that. So I'm done with the loops. Now it is time to do a lot of bead picking. This process, please do not rush yourself. If you're tired, you can just stop and continue another day or later. Do not put yourself under pressure to finish in one sitting. So firstly, I'm going to make a big knot on my thread. I've already threaded my needle. I'll be using this long thin needle because I can pick a lot of beads when I'm using it. So I'm just going to be making a lot of knots that sit on top of each other. When you pull your string, just make sure that it comes to the same place. The knots rest on the knots that are already there, like that, because we want one big knot so that the beads do not fall through the knot. See, it's getting bigger. So my knot is quite big now. I think it's good enough. I don't think the beads can go through this knot. So I'm just gonna start picking my beads now. And this is how I do it. If you put a lot of beads in your plate, your saucer, whatever you're using, it becomes easy to pick a lot of them. You see that? So you can just choose the length that you want. I know that when I fill about 4.5 needles, I will have the size that I want. You can experiment with centimeters, but from the neck, mine goes all the way down to my belly. Yeah, that's the length that I want. So I'm just going to pick a few more. I'm using 10 knot sized beads, so that means I'm picking a whole lot more beads as compared to when I use the 2mm seed beads. If you decide to use bigger beads, it means you pick less beads at a time. But if you decide to use smaller ones, it means you need more beads. So I'm just going to let my beads fall all the way down on the thread. Now I take my memory wire. I'm going to start off by putting my tassels from the middle, and I move in one direction. When I am satisfied with the number of beads, the tassels I have on this end, I will work in the other direction. So now I'm just going to put my needle underneath the wire, the hoop, so that my thread is sitting under this wire. So I'm going to start off at the middle. I pull my thread so that it rests in between these beads. Okay, you see that? The thread is in between the beads. I'm just going to pull the thread so that the tassel goes all the way to the top. Now I'm going to take my needle and put it through the very first bead only. You see that? Just the first bead. Hold the tassel in place and then pull the thread. Make sure your thread sits nicely at the top there. I'm using a double thread only because my thread is so thin, but you don't have to do that if your thread is thick enough. So once I have pulled my thread, it means the first tassel is secured and sitting nicely on the memory wire. So now I'm going to pick more beads on this string until it is about the same length as the first tassel. With this design, it doesn't have to be exactly the same length, but if you want to achieve that effect, just try it out and see how it goes. So now I'm just going to pick more beads. So I have enough beads for my second tassel, and I'm just going to compare it with the first one. It's almost the same length, and that's just fine. So now I'm going to cut off I'm going to cut the thread, but leave enough thread to work with for this bit. Don't make it too short, otherwise you won't be able to make a knot, the sort of knot that we want. So again, you need a big knot like the one that I made the first time. So I'm just going to make knots that sit on top of each other on this end. That's the first one. It gets better with practice, but just make sure that your beads don't move out of place as you do this. Try and just pinch that thread and then pull it. There I go again. I'm making my knot. Just as I put my thread through the loop, I pinch that thread so that it does not move at all. I pull my thread and you see my knot keeps getting big. So the trick is to try and make your knots rest in between your very first knot here and your very last bead on the tassel. That way you don't keep making knots that keep going all this way and then you really don't achieve what you're trying to do. So you hold tight and you pull. You hold tight and you pull. And as you do this, you do not want any gaps in between your beads. On this tassel here, there shouldn't be any gaps. And at the top here, there shouldn't be any loose strings. Otherwise, it just won't be as neat. You see that? We don't want any loose strings. We don't want the bead sitting there at the top and then a whole lot of string in the middle and the beads start falling down there. It will not look neat. So just be careful of that. But it doesn't matter if you don't get it right the first time. If you keep practicing, you'll get it right. So those are my first 2 tassels. Now it is time to repeat the process. You thread your needle, you pick beads, you repeat the process that I did here. You put your needle underneath the wire, you bring it over, and you skip 2 beads. You skip 2 beads. That is how you can space it out. 2 or 3 beads in between your tassels so that the tassels sit neatly. Yeah, so that's it. You keep doing that until you have a lot of tassels. I would recommend that you have about 12 to 18 sets of tassels. Here I have 12 sets of tassels. I say sets because I do 2 at a time. You remember when we do the turning, that means already you have 2 tassels. So here I have 12 tassels and I think that's okay. Now I just need to neaten this bit, and this is the very tricky part. You have to be very careful, otherwise you may end up with way more work than you want to do. And for this part I'm going to be using a candle. So I have my candle ready. I like to use these small candles because they don't produce much of a flame. They don't produce a big flame. I've tried using a big candle, those thick ones, and I just noticed that the flame was way too much. Too many accidents are bound to happen if you do that. So I always like to use these really small candles. So now I'm just going to take my first tassel, and there's all this string hanging. I'm just going to cut it really short, and then I'm going to bend this end to neaten it and also to avoid any sort of raveling. So remember, when you are bending these ends with of the strings, you don't have to put it all the way into the flame, just close and it will melt, and then just give it a gentle press. I was saying you have to be very careful, because if you're not careful, your knot may fall off. This thread can easily snap and all these beads will fall off. So it means that you will have to start afresh with that tassel, and it becomes 2 tassels because your string already becomes way too short to have 2 tassels hanging. So for one accident with a tassel, it means you have to redo 2 tassels. So please be very, very careful when you're doing this part. Just slowly and gently leave a little bit of string to burn just close to it, and you give it a gentle press. Do not get carried away because it just creates way too much work for you. So I'm just going to burn all these ends, and then I will show you the final step. So I've burnt all the ends, and this is how it looks. They are not even in size, but it's okay. When you're wearing it, it looks quite nice that the ends are uneven. So now I need to put a jump ring and some jump rings and a lobster hook to finish it off. Another thing that I wanted to say is please blow out candles the moment you are done so that we avoid accidents. The moment you finish, blow it out. So I'm just going to pinch it with 1 pliers and open it like that. See, it's open, and I'm just going to put it on that loop that I created at the beginning. I'm going to pinch the other end and close it using the other one. So I'm just pushing it in the opposite direction to close it. And there, I'm just going to give it a gentle pinch. There, nice and closed. Now the second one, I'm going to pinch it with 1 pliers, open it, put my lobster hook, and then put it through that loop. Oops, I'm gonna have to do it again. So I'm just going to put my lobster hook back, hold it carefully, put that loop through it, and close. Okay, I'm trying it for the 3rd time, and I know I'm gonna get it right. There, I've closed my jump ring, and I am done. So yeah, that's the neck piece. You can just try using different colors. Don't be scared to experiment with colors. Here's another one that I've done with black and gold. You can even put colors here in the middle and solid colors on the outer beads. Just experiment and see how it goes. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching my video. I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.